What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Sith Council. It is the Thursday edition now. No, Wednesday. I always forget my days. Today's Wednesday, and we are going to be doing Obi-Wan is wrapped as we wait for Andor, which is coming around the corner in August. Now we get back to the questions from you guys, and that has leading up to Obi-Wan. That's what we were doing. You guys were firing out some great topics, and there's other stuff on that we can find, whether it's on Star Wars Newsnet or other places. And we have the the Cal Kestis story we talked about, and there's other things. And Steph Sabraw is joining me here today, and we'll talk about some other things. The Taika Waititi, same story. Everyone's asking him because he's doing Thor: Love and Thunder right now. So it's like, what's your movie about? He makes a joke about what it's really not about, and then, hey, he's actually going to make it on 2023. Yeah, that's what they're hoping for. Right. Between that and other stuff, we have a lot. And one of the main questions, as you guys have clicked on, we're going to debate, or I don't know if we're going to debate. We might have just a full conversation. Steph might be in agreement. I think Vader needs a spin-off series. I think he needs a 6-point miniseries, and I think it needs to be directed by Scott Derrickson. That's my take on it, but I don't know where Steph stands on it. We'll talk about it, and there's so many other things we'll talk about. And if you guys haven't already done it, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We are almost at 50,000. We are really, really close. At this point, when this airs, we're probably 400, 500 away from it, and you guys can get us there. So make sure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found, make sure that you check that out. Do that. All right, it's myself. It is Steph Sabraw. It is the Sith Council. Let's do it.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Sith Council. Excited, man. It's the countdown to Andor now is right around the corner. And joining me, the one and the only. Oh, that's not her. Steph Sabraw. There she is. I had put
it's Mike.
Yeah, it's Mike. No, I actually put on Winston's camera, which he's not on this show. But there's Steph Sabraw. Steph, how are you?
Good. I haven't learned how to force Ghost into the studio yet, but I'm working on it.
No, but we've done a new thing now where I don't have to do the StreamYards, and I can just get you right into the show just like this. And now we can even do a double shot just like that. Look, it's myself and Steph. We are in studio without being in studio. How about that? That's wonderful stuff. So how are you doing post Obi-Wan?
Good. I got to rewatch it with my mom and brother. They've been watching it and they hadn't seen the finale yet. So I got to watch their reactions and it was really cute. I really liked watching them. Yeah. Because they're not as they haven't seen Rebels. They haven't seen Clone. They're not like as interconnected to the whole.
Yeah. So
they're just happy to get anything.
Well, I talked about that actually with a few people. On the Big Thing episode, though, where it's everybody inside of the movie space bubble. If you're a massive fan, if you're a Star Wars fan, you look at these shows and the sphere in such different lenses than, like you said, like your mom or your family would, because they're just looking for a fun show to watch and then shut off and then not think about it ever again. They're not going to analyze it. They're not going to tell you whether or not they think that why Reva was in the show and why she wasn't in the show and why Obi-Wan should have been doing this or not doing that. They're just watching it to have a good time. And that's why the show ultimately succeeded and did it very well. For people, this is a misconception a lot of fans have when they're like, wow, I mean, everything I'm seeing, people don't like this show. You are in the minority of the people who love it, the Star Wars massives who love it, in the minority. The Star Wars fans who hate it, in the minority. It's the massive, it's the casual fan who has Disney Plus that turns it on and goes, oh, a Star Wars show, I'll watch that.
Yeah. And I watched Doctor Strange with them too, the multiverse. So, and I noticed like two key differences between what I thought Obi-Wan did better, obviously it's a show than a movie. It made it for the lay person, like my mom and my brother. They got everything. There was some stuff like the stuff they don't know, like the full background of the Inquisitors. It didn't matter. With Doctor Strange, my mom fell asleep because she she couldn't keep up.
It's too much. They're asking you to be. You have to be a part of the MCU for a long time. I don't agree with Kevin Feige where he says you don't have to watch WandaVision or the TV show to catch it. You have to watch WandaVision to really be invested.
I had to pause it and give her like a 20-minute
Yeah.
breakdown of WandaVision because she was like, "What? She was just an Avenger." Like, I'm so confused.
It's true, and this doesn't ask you to do that. It's pretty. Even if you don't know who the Inquisitors are, or you've never heard of the Grand Inquisitor or any of that, it does play for the casual fan, and in that aspect, whatever. I mean, clearly, if you watched our show last week, I had a lot of issues with the show. There's a lot of stuff that I loved about the show, but like I said, the stuff that I have major issues with, your mom's not going to have that issue with. The casual fan is not going to have a lot of the issues that I have a problem with, and that's ultimately, whether we like it or not, why a lot of these decisions are made, because they're being made for, will casual fans be able to keep up? Will casual fans? I don't necessarily always agree with that strategy, but it's a strategy that is clearly working for them and why they continue to do it.
Yeah, I hope that they catch a happy medium. I think that there's some shows and some things that can be really like nitty gritty for the fans. I feel like Mandalorian probably did the best job of, because it's a new character, to do like bridging that gap. But I think they're catching their footing, or I hope they are a little bit more with that.
We'll see. I mean, it's definitely, this one had a lot of debate behind it. There's no doubt about that. And there's a lot. I mean, look, we got a lot of questions that were coming in general for this episode, and a lot of questions were stemmed around Obi-Wan. It was hard to sift through because there were so many that came in, because I posted it on Twitter, I posted it on Facebook, and I posted it on the YouTube community page, and so many great questions came in. It was hard to go through all of them, and there were a lot about Obi-Wan, a lot. And from both sides, from people who really enjoyed it and from people who were disappointed by it. So I will say, before we jump into you know what? I can bring up, that's great. Look at that. It's going to actually see me bring up Star Wars Newsnet. I'm going to bring in Star Wars Newsnet right now. And as I go through, let's see if there's anything in general that we should. ObiWan Kenobi is going to be behind the scenes. Obi-Wan Kenobi behind the scenes video shows training for Reva versus Vader confrontation. Now we're gonna see a lot of that stuff on Gallery. Star Wars actor explained there's a lot of there's tons of Obi-Wan stuff. Everybody's talking Obi-Wan stuff. We're still in the Obi-Wan cycle, even though Obi-Wan has concluded. We're still in the talk. You know, there's really nothing. What were you telling me you heard about the Taika one, Steph?
Oh, breaking news, Kristian.
Yes.
Taika Waititi doesn't know what the script's going to be. So he's working on it.
He's working on it. And there's no chance that thing comes out in 2023.
Same article every time. Not from Star Wars Newsnet, from every other. Just like,
well, because
okay,
everybody
guys.
asks him. Everybody asks him, and he's got the same answer every time he does it. And he's going to be, and he's got more of these Thor interviews he's got to do. And they're going to ask him 1,000 times over, the same thing over and over again. What's going on with the Star Wars movie? He's going to have the same answer. He's going to joke about how it's about Jar Jar Binks. He's going to make jokes about it, and he's going to have no real answer for it whatsoever. And I don't know. I can't imagine in what world, unless that movie is already shot and in the can, that it comes out in 2023. How in the world does that movie come out in 2023?
There's no way, unless the whole thing is like a lie and they've known about what to me, what it is for like a year now, before they were shooting Thor Love and Thunder.
Or they were shooting stuff while they were shooting Love and Thunder.
Yeah, which I guess is possible,
no
but
way. From
what I've seen about the Thor Love and Thunder production, I've heard they've landed really well. I'm going to see it this week, and I heard that like even just a month prior, it was kind of sketch, like just because he has so much going on.
Yeah, no, I heard the same. So, all right, we have questions. We have a lot of questions. We got to get to all those questions. So let's start. Let's start with the first question on the table, and that one comes from Paul Reaper. Do you feel the TV series need to have longer episodes going forward? I feel they made a massive mistake with Obi-Wan making 30-minute episodes within a 6-episode series. This is a huge complaint from a lot of people. Including myself. I think that there are times that if you tell the story in that 30 minutes, we're like, no, that's all they needed to tell it, and it doesn't seem like anything was left on the table, then I understand doing 30-minute episodes. I get it. But there felt like there was a lot of story and a lot of character and a lot of development that was left on the table because the episodes were so short. And there was those rumors that the last episode was going to be an hour and a half. And I remember saying to myself, well, if that's the case, hour and a half, and they've been 30-minute episodes. It's like 3 episodes in one. You're almost getting like 8 episodes total, and 8 or 9 total. So it'd be worth it. And that was only like 45 minutes or whatever it was, like an extra 15 minutes. I do think that there's a mistake of doing these episodes so short. I don't think Andor is going to be half an hour. I think Andor is going to be longer. I feel like it anyway, especially after watching stuff like I'm watching The Boys right now. I'm watching Stranger Things, and these are all an hour and 10 minutes, and there's a lot. And these aren't small budgets that these shows are working with. So I don't understand the 30-minute idea unless they are approaching it like an animated series. What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of confusing to me because I feel like we know a lot of independent filmmakers and we understand budgets. And it's like you make stories that are around your budget and what you can actually show. Star Wars doesn't have a budget. So, and you're telling like the most expansive stories in the galaxy or hoping to. So to me, it'd be like, why not go all the way out, like Game of Thrones style, $1 million per episode? Screw it. If you have it, and if you have the story,
that's tough though. That's tough because the only reason I'll push back on that a little bit is because there is a budget. As much as we like to believe, you know, much as it's true that Disney does have insane and obnoxious amounts of money. It's the same way that like any other business and similar, like say like Skybound, right? Like people have said to me, well, why can't you do live events? Doesn't Skybound have Invincible and Skybound has Walking Dead? They have enough money to do live events. But that's how much those shows have. Those shows have a lot of money. SCHMOEDOWN is a property within Skybound that they say to each property, they go, okay, this is what you have to work for.
Your budget
for the year. That's your budget. And the same goes for Obi-Wan and those other shows that Lucasfilm has. They have their budgets and they stick with it. And sometimes they'll go over budget, whatever it might be. The difference between movies and film is that with movies, it's like, okay, look, yeah, we might have gone over $10 million or $20 million, but we made that up in the first 12 hours of ticket sales. You can't do that with streaming, because streaming, it's like, do we get subscribers? Did we have that? How do we know that the subscribers came in directly from Obi-Wan? So it is tricky where you've got more money, as exactly like you were saying. You have more money than someone who's making a smaller film or smaller show or those types of things. There should be the same amount of budget put into these shows that a Stranger Things has or The Boys have, and they're putting out movie type quality and longer episodes.
Yeah. No, I definitely see what you're saying. It is different with shows, but I didn't have necessarily some of the episodes I think could have been absolutely longer.
Yeah.
To me, it was just like with the story they told, I guess, and the characters that they chose to focus on. It's hard not to wish that we got more time, especially when it comes to what we've talked about all the time is like dialogue. Like I just wish that's not that expensive to shoot. I'm not asking for huge lightsaber battles here. I'm asking for a conversation that's just a little more extended.
Right. Yeah. You could add a few more. I mean, even the Qui-Gon stuff, right? It's just like, hey, he's there. There he is. There he is. Hey, come.
You got it.
Yeah. Come follow me now. We don't want to talk about anything that just went down with Anakin or anything. The guy that you told me to train. We don't want to talk about any of that. We're just gonna. I could have. I was here the whole time, you rascal. And it's like there's just nothing. That was a kind of like, told you I wasn't going to show up. And it was great to see him, but there was so much more. Like even when you turn back to like Return of the Jedi, when Obi-Wan has that dialogue with Luke of what I told you was true from a certain point of view, and what you got to realize is when I first met him, he was this, and that. There was so much in that conversation that takes 2 to 4 minutes, whatever it is. It's like, imagine that right before he goes off to fight Vader, Qui-Gon appears to him and says, "Look, we made it. I still believe that there's something with this guy, that there's something in there, and my gut tells me it's right." He's like, your gut might be wrong because he just murdered a bunch of people. He's like, I still feel it. Whatever the conversation is, he had like there was none of that. There was no conversation.
Yeah, I was like, Qui-Gon, that's your guy. Remember,
that's your guy, right?
Took me here to Tatooine.
But a lot of that stuff. I mean, I think that there was, and this isn't stuff that it was just stuff that could have been, like you said, you could have added 3 or 4 minutes more of dialogue to a couple more scenes. Like you look at an example of where they did do that, and it worked tremendously. I thought was in episode 3 when they get picked up by Freck and they're on that his truck or whatever, and they're having that conversation, Obi-Wan and Leia, and Obi-Wan reveals that he had a brother. And he revealed that he was picked up at a young age, and he can't remember his brother, and he remembers the thing. That told a lot about the character. And that was what? That was just a couple lines of dialogue. That was missing throughout the entire series.
My dog's barking. Yeah, I agree with you. There were some moments of great conversation that I really liked, but that was the one thing that when we separated ourselves a week from the last episode, that's the one thing I keep thinking about. The thing that I wanted the most was that. Everything else I'm okay with, but that, like, I hate wishing that I got more conversation.
Yeah, I mean that stems into that question of should the episodes be longer, and that's why I think the answer is yes. I do think the answer is yes for that. Because as I said, if I felt like you got what you needed in a tight 30, they really put it together and you got it and it ties in, because there's some episodes, I think it was a Mandalorian, that were like shorter, 30, 35, but it tied into the overall arc when you watch it as a full movie. And I will say that when you watch Obi-Wan as a full like 4.5 hour movie or whatever it is, I think it plays better for sure. I mean, that end fight scene is just phenomenal. It's great, regardless of whether or not you think Vader or Obi-Wan should have. And someone asked, I think you asked the question last week, and I didn't really answer it. I answered it in a comment, how you would have ended the fight, right? If you didn't end it with Obi-Wan just walking away. I think that a way you could have ended that fight was at that point, because if the Inquisitor is just waiting around up in the ship, first of all, why didn't he go chase after the rebels if Vader went off on his shuttle? Part 1. Part 2 is if he's just waiting there, why not send in a bunch of TIE fighters, and right as Obi-Wan's ready to strike Vader down, the TIE fighters come in, separate them, with some kind of big ditch or something, and he can't get to him, and now he's got to take off. And then,
that could have been cool.
Yeah, and Vader's just kind of left out there looking over, just like son of a bitch. I could have had him, when in reality you wouldn't have. But and then it doesn't leave that question of like, why didn't Obi-Wan finish him, and why did Obi-Wan just let him? Because Obi-Wan, there's a lot of blood on Obi-Wan's hands now. Like the entire planet of Alderaan could still be around.
Yeah, I told my brother how you were like, he's got to be the most irresponsible Jedi ever. It's just like, it's like, see you later, it's
Darth.
So worth seeing it, but it's so true. Like Darth Vader's a full-on serial killer.
Yeah, it's like, so much. Anyway, buddy, either way. All right, let's get to the next question. All right, that one was from Paul Reaper. The next question here comes from Lewis Scott. Now, if you could have one Clone Wars character that Disney made a series of, who would it be? Again, I'm just going to start. I know this is just an innocent question, but I have to correct people on this. I'm going to rewrite Lewis Scott's question. If you could have one Clone Wars character that Lucasfilm made a series of, who would it be? Or if you could have a Clone Wars character that Lucasfilm made a series of that aired on Disney Plus, who would it be? Yeah. I don't. It's like that same thing where people the same reason what I'm saying that people shouldn't start saying, "Oh, Disney Star Wars sucks," or is the same reason because you're not going to give what's your favorite Marvel movie, Steph?
Probably Endgame.
Okay, so Endgame is mine as well. In no world have I ever heard anyone go, Disney did such a great job making Endgame. No one says that. No one says Disney did such a great job making Rogue One. No one says that. They give it to Disney made such a great such a great job with Mandalorian. Disney did a great job. Everyone says Filoni or Favreau or everybody
so true.
And it's like you don't and as you should. They give there's the example I gave of the difference between when you can potentially start pointing fingers at like a studio. One perfect example is if you go back to Batman and Robin, Now, Batman 1989 made by Tim Burton, and the follow-up lost money, and the studio goes, no, we got to put our hands in it, get rid of Burton, bring in Joel Schumacher. Joel, we want you to make this movie. You got to make it you got to oversell it for toys. You got to make it campy. You got to make it cheesy. And Schumacher's like, okay, I'll do what you guys want. Then, when you go, Warner Brothers doesn't know what the hell they're doing with Batman. Warner Brothers sucks. The creative that they chose there was terrible. You're on point because that's documented. That's what happened. In the same thing, it's that when I don't even remember what studio made Titanic, right? It's nobody does. We just remember James Cameron. When James Cameron comes in, they say, and they gave him the money. They gave him notes and everything too. But James Cameron made the movie, and then when that movie does well, you go, well, James Cameron did it. James Cameron made that, and James Cameron was the one, and it was great performances and everything too. And even if the studios gave great notes, remember it, you think of James Cameron. It's the same thing when these people go, well, Disney Star Wars is the reason everything is going up in arms, and is the reason it stinks, everything too. It's like Disney will have notes, and certainly look, Deadpool, right? Deadpool's going to be one where you're going to have to keep an eye on, because it's very possible that Disney's going to say, no, you can't do that because we're Disney now, where they have said that they're not going to do that. That makes sense. But like when you're asking like what series Disney's going to make next, Lucasfilm comes to Disney and goes, the next series we want to make is this. And they go, okay, well, how much is it going to cost? Well, this is your budget, what you have. Go ahead and do it. You think like Acolyte? You think Disney came up and said, we want you to make an Acolyte series? No, Lucasfilm goes, there was a pitch in the room that they wanted that they want to do. We want to do an Acolyte series, and it's based on this, and this is when it's going to be. Okay, well, what's it about? And they hear notes, but they're not the ones coming up with the premises. That's really true. It's not how it works. It's
like no one's gotten over the prequels, I feel like, and the purchase in a way that, like, it's so true. I've never even thought about that. It's constantly talked about in that way. Like, Disney's making this Star Wars,
and they're not making it.
They're
giving them. Now listen, they very well could say, like, if Lucasfilm comes in and says we're going to do a series about Darth Vader, and it's just pure murder. We're going rated R, and blood's going to be everywhere. He's going to be dropping F-bombs, and he's going to be doing this. And Disney can say, we don't want to put that on Disney Plus. Like, that's no. Like, we need you to tone that down. That's very possible, and probably what would happen, because they are conscious of their brand. There's no doubt about it. But when they start when ObiWan, like that. They're not coming up with the ideas. That's Deborah Chow, and that's with Kathleen Kennedy and Filoni and all those people that are coming up with that. And they go, this is the story that we're going to tell, and then there's marketing behind it. So it's just like the only company like that I feel like anymore is like, or that I can think of right now, that huge is like Pixar. Pixar, you don't often know by name, like offhand, like every director or writer involved. It's Pixar making it. But that's Disney. Like, but that's Disney also. And it's like, but that's the same.
And no
thing.
one says that.
No one ever says it. It's when it stinks. It's Disney's fault. And when it's good, and I'm not telling you that when it's good you should give them credit, because it's the same thing. Like, they're putting the money into it, and they should get the credit for producing it and putting money into it and believing in it. Absolutely. But when it comes to the creative decisions behind it, it's like they shouldn't get the credit for the creative. They shouldn't get. Well, it was all Disney. That was the reason why Endgame was so good. No, it was Favreau and Feige and the Russo brothers and everybody that was putting it together, and the performances and the build up behind it, all that. That's who should get the majority of it. And then you give the producers that were behind it and the executives that greenlit that said, okay, you guys, that's fine, that's cool, you can do that. But the creative stuff, people got to stop saying that. That's just people unaware of how it works in the system. I was around it for 15 years, and I worked at Warner Brothers. The same thing. There's certain things that the studio will greenlight, and certain people they want to work with, but it's when at Joel's company there was scripts that he wanted to do. This is the movie we want to do. This is the director we're going to have. Here's the script we want to put into production. Oh, can you do this, this, and this? Nah, we want to go this way with it. All right, go make your movie, but you got to show receipts that it's going to make cash. So it's just it's that thing. So and I don't mean to use this particular guy as an example, but it just happens all of the time, and it's frustrating. And it doesn't matter who it is. The same thing. I would say the same thing if it's like a matter of like when Warner Brothers shouldn't get the credit for the Snyder cut. Like Zack Snyder should get the credit for that. I mean, they should get the credit that they gave them the money, they released it, all those things, and they finally, after people were like, hey, put it out, they put it out. But they didn't have the clearly the creative input. He does, but it's still under the Warner Brothers banner. So it's a whole conversation.
It's a good point.
But as far as if you could have one Clone Wars character, who would it be? Is ultimately what poor Lewis Scott was trying to ask here. I think for me right now, the way it's been set up is I think Quinlan Vos. I think Quinlan Vos to me is a character now that has enough intrigue behind him, and now has been set up by Obi-Wan inside of his series. And you could imagine Jason Momoa playing Quinlan Vos, and having a Quinlan Vos series about helping out the Renegade and 6 to 8 episodes. That's the other thing with these series, though. I don't think they need to go into season 2, season 3. It depends on how it's written. Look at Rogue One. In no world did I think. I mean, Rogue One, Andor. I didn't think Andor was going to get 3 seasons. That's crazy. But clearly they have a story.
Yeah. I'm so excited for Andor series now that Obi-Wan is out of the way and we saw that trailer. But I think, that's a good call. I think I hope they do something with Quinlan Vos, especially from bringing it up, because it is a really reach character. If you haven't seen the Clone Wars, you would have zero idea. Or have read the comics maybe, but I love Asajj Ventress. We got a lot of her in the Clone Wars, but I just feel like there's a lot on her home planet and with the sisters and everything.
Where would you put it though? What time period? Because we know. Did you read Dark Disciple?
No.
I want to give a spoiler to both Steph and to the audience here. So you've been warned as far as the Dark Disciple spoiler goes. Okay. And I'm going to put the time code. Steph, she dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she dead. So in Dark Disciple, she eats it and she basically saves Quinlan Vos. And she
but maybe maybe put her in the show. Then that could be sick.
I still think that I don't understand how take
the books. Yeah.
Take one of your books and make it a miniseries. You have the writing right there. You have the dialogue. It's make it a freaking miniseries or two seasons based off of this great writing from whether it's Christy Golden or Claudia Gray or Paul S. Kemp, all these people that you have these books for, and there's Alexander Freed. There's all these different writers that they have, really great writers that you could adapt and just have some of your screenwriters and just adapt some of the books. Try one and see how it does. Try one.
Yeah, you just try one.
Just try one and see how it does. You don't have to worry about the writing. Obviously the adaptation from it, but just try one. Adapt one of your series. And I've been screaming about Darth Plagueis and how you could do it's essentially a Palpatine prequel. But yeah, there's the Darth Bane stuff, like the Drew Karpyshyn novels. There's so much that I don't know what the hesitation is. I've said that many times over. Such a hesitation to try to adapt these books. I don't get it.
No, I think one day we'll see the day when that happens. Maybe it's Taika. Maybe he's going to read and pull, but I doubt it. Yeah, they just don't care about the books.
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to. But we both say Quinlan Vos on that one.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah. All right. So this one's from Daniel. Do you think that there's a chance that Reva could appear in Andor as a Rebel Alliance spy/fighter? With the amount of time and focus that went into her character arc in Obi-Wan, I feel like the writers had an aim of wanting the audience to get behind her redemption. I personally felt that wasn't totally earned in the finale. However, it becomes apparent that she was an important player in the Rebel Alliance in the events leading up to Rogue One. I feel like this may play out pretty well and get people behind the character's arc. What are your thoughts on this for to happen? I understand what you're saying. I understand that the arc wasn't necessarily earned and it was also pretty predictable. We were talking about how that it seemed like that was going to happen before the show even aired. But I can't. I think that would be a mistake to put her in Rogue One because Rogue One. I keep saying Rogue One. Andor, because it's too close to Rogue One. At the point when we get to Rogue One, it doesn't seem like there's any Force users around, like anywhere, because there's, and why would they? And at that one point where Bail Organa goes and gets, he's basically go find Obi-Wan. At that point, why would they even need him if they have her, she could be helping out, just wrecking shop? I think she's probably going to have her own mission off to the side. Well, we'll probably ultimately see the end of whatever might tragically happen to her, or she goes out like a full-on hero. I don't think Andor is the place where she's going to wind up, though. Steph, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think she is either. I don't know. To me, I feel like she's a one-off character in Obi-Wan. I think there could be a future where she shows up, maybe in an animated series, but I don't think that. I just don't have a feeling that's going off zero fact and just my feelings, that I don't think that she's going to be in Andor. But in terms of I still don't really see that as like a full redemption arc. I do agree. We called that from a mile away, that she'd be the reason that someone didn't die. But to me, she's still like not great. She's not a good person. She's just not a child murderer. Or she could have been a child murderer for sure before that. No, she's just not a Luke child murderer.
I don't know. I don't think she was. I think that was the whole point, was that she couldn't do it because that was what happened to her. And then it was that, I think that's why I do think she was redeemed, because that's why she had that conversation. That's why Obi-Wan had the conversation. He basically told her, you chose to go to the light. You chose to make that decision. It wasn't just this one thing, because the other thing that she could have done, if she wasn't redeemed, she could have just left them out in the dunes and said, all right, figure it out for yourself. I didn't kill you, but I'm out of here. She carried him back. She brought him back, and I mean, that's pretty redeeming. She's like, she felt bad about it. She felt bad about what she did. She came back. She didn't attack. If she hadn't been redeemed, she would have come back and like, oh yeah, I didn't take him out, but you guys were shooting at me, so I'm gonna kill your asses. She didn't do that either. She was broken. She felt bad about it. She was crying. She realized where she had gone from beforehand was the wrong path. So I absolutely think she was redeemed, and I just think that it was. I stand by this, and I think where people ask this question, I think it was her best performance of the entire series, but I still think that they did her a disservice by putting her in this series. I think you could have put the character of Reva and Moses Ingram in a different series and done the same type of arc, a little, maybe not necessarily with Vader, but figured out that type of thing in a different series, maybe in this Quinlan Vos thing that we're talking about, right? Or this potential Jedi Fallen Order story that we're talking about. Like those types of things, you introduce her because there's no attach. It's the same thing like with like Last Jedi or the new trilogy. There's no attachment to characters when it's Mandalorian, because you don't know any of these characters. Instead, when Luke shows up, but these are all new characters that you're being introduced to, so there's no expectations behind them. There's no expectations not only of what you hope to see, but there's no expectations of getting excited to see the characters that you loved before, and then seeing a trailer going, oh, you think that's going to happen, and then introduced to someone that you go, well, who's that? Oh, they're really, but that's not the show I want to watch. But I want to see Obi-Wan and Vader because it's called ObiWan Kenobi, and I have this, and there's always new characters that are introduced in all these different shows. But it was just, for this particular, as big of a story and how anticipated this was, it doesn't matter which character it was, whether it was Reva, Steva, whoever it was. Like you're gonna have a problem when people want to see Obi-Wan and Vader, because when you keep cutting back, when you have Vader and Obi-Wan in this big massive fight, and you cut back to her chasing Luke and Owen and Ben, people are like, come on, cut away from this. We want to see the fight, and that's not fair to her.
Yeah, I think if you just compare her, Reva, and Tala's character,
yeah,
I feel like it was way easier to really like Tala and like want more of her. And I think one thing that Star Wars isn't, like, I don't know, for some reason sometimes with their villains, like they don't know how to, it's sometimes better when there's more mystery, like people like Tarkin, I think of, like he's barely in any scenes.
Vader in the beginning, Vader in episode 4,
barely in any scenes. Palpatine is barely in any scenes as like full on the Emperor. And I think that works really well for Star Wars. I'm not saying that I wouldn't want more of them if it's done right, but for some reason when they're, focus so much on characters like Obi-Wan that like contrast with how they decide to depict their villains isn't as strong as like characters like Tala, where you're like, oh, I want more of her. And that sucks because I feel like they're both like those are two great actresses and we shouldn't be wanting way more of one than the other.
It's a great point though, because it's a matter of when the way that they introduced Tala is that they gave her enough of like they kept peppering in character stuff with her and understanding who she was but they didn't have and they didn't say, okay, now you've got to just run with the main, like you're going to be like the main storyline for a lot of this series. Again, that's not fair to Moses Ingram at that point. It's just not fair because you're going, that's so much pressure to put on someone's shoulder to say, we never heard of this character before, but you're asking us, like we're trying to figure out all this stuff that happened with Obi-Wan, why he's on Tatooine and doing all this stuff, and does he know about Anakin, and does he know about all this stuff, and in half an hour episodes like we just talked about, it's just it was a very tough mountain to climb. That I think the reason why that there's so much conversation about it.
Yeah.
All right, so that was from Daniel. Okay, next question here comes from Far Too Bored. Would a Vader series work with the current Disney model of making villains anti-heroes? Again, would a Vader series work with the current Lucasfilm model of making villains anti-heroes? While Vader is a fan favorite and a series would be a hit rating-wise, he is not an anti-hero in the slightest. I'm worried that under current creative, thinking of Vader series is not very likely. Again, creative is coming from Lucasfilm. And it seems to be, and I agree with you, that it seems like Lucasfilm is doing a lot of things creatively here. And one of the things that they keep doing is the Lone Cub story. That not only Lone Cub and Wolf story. Not only is just Star Wars doing that. Everybody else, I think that Halo was doing it at one point. Everybody's doing that now. And get away from the kids on and the main hero on these separate adventures. And now the main hero's got to take care of the kid, and the kid's teaching him something about themselves. And it's like no more of that. We've done it. How many times are we going to do that? We do it in Obi-Wan. We're doing it in Mandalorian, and that's one trope. The other trope is here's the main bad guy, and now they're going to be redeemed. And someone said, well, that's what happened to Vader. Yeah, but how many times do you want it to happen? You want it to keep happening because when it happened with Vader, you didn't predict it when it came out, and now. We predicted it with Kylo. We didn't want it to happen with Kylo. You predicted it with Reva. And the question is, it's a great question, though. And it's one of the reasons why I think that this, though, does fall into the Disney side of things. What I will say, like the creative, who pitches the story is not, and who decides to turn someone anti-hero into, as opposed to just pure villain, could be a no from Disney. You're not wrong. Where they could say, "Hey, you guys want to lead with a villain? That's tough. You got kids watching this thing, and I don't know if I don't think we want to do that." And then it's up to Kathleen Kennedy, the director, to go, "We want to fight for this. We want to make sure we want to lead with a villain because we want to show there will be heroes inside of this story, but the main story will be about the villain." And it will be about the things that you do. There will be the same reason that there's heroes in Empire Strikes Back, and the bad guys win in that one. So you can do it, and you can make the lead, but it's a great question of whether or not they. I don't think they're going to do it because of that reason. To be honest with you.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, they're not willing right now to just like explore the mind of people as much. Like when we talk about dialogue, they want these action sequences to happen. And when you have a villain and you're not willing to explore like the depth, what makes a villain interesting is this is why Joker's the most interesting villain to people, because there's like a depth to that where you're like trying to figure out why he's like that. Right. And you kind of see it in the way he interacts with people. In order for me to fully watch a villain story, I would need that. Like, I want to understand the psyche. I want to see like flashbacks of your childhood. I want to see like the different things that happen. And that's like not how the Star Wars shows are moving right now, or anything that we've seen really from Marvel either.
Yeah, it's true. So I don't know. I mean, look, right now, what we do know, the shows that we know that we have coming out, we have Andor. We have 3 seasons of Andor, and I'll tell you, prediction that I can swear by at this point, and this is a prediction I'm going to guarantee, Steph. I guarantee that we're going to see a bevy of comments come in saying who would have thought that out of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan and Andor, that Andor would be the best series. People are going to say that this show is the best of the 3. Not including Mandalorian, obviously, but this, I think, out of the shows that have dropped this year, I think Andor, not including Bad Batch, obviously, but I think that Andor is going to get the most praise from the fans. From if it plays the same way that trailer did.
Yeah, I think you could be right, and I think it could be the thing that makes Star Wars realize that they might need to focus on characters that haven't been so ingrained in Star Wars legacy. Because I think that's the problem. Like, the reason I would love to see a Darth Vader show, and I like, he's the sickest villain of all time, but I don't really I'm scared about the continued discourse that's happening in Star Wars right now, where like it's not that I'm blaming people for being disappointed or blaming people for being mad that don't love the show. It's just like it's too much for it to go wrong for a lot of people.
It's a fantastic point. No, it really is, because you're not wrong that when it comes to this explosion of conversation that happens on Twitter or YouTube or comments or whatever, it does, like, you look at the 2 that stand out the most are Last Jedi and Obi-Wan, right? And they're really attached, and even like the new trilogy of movies, but like that's because they're so attached to characters that we know and things that we understand. Like the biggest discourse in Last Jedi was the conversation of whether or not you thought that was a good interpretation of Luke or not. And there was that big conversation. Mandalorian has gone over really well with fans because there's not a lot of characters that you know, except you've been introduced to Din through these episodes, and you've kind of learned with him. You've learned about him through each episode, and like Boba Fett has had to be changed because he was too similar to Din. And that was another recognizable character. And I do want to see a Vader series, but I do think that you're right that there are so many expectations because the writing has to be, it's got to be spot on. And it has to be, and they've got to rely on, like, both Boba Fett and Obi-Wan did not rely on Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. There's a lot of Obi-Wan stuff. And there's a lot of Boba Fett stuff, more Obi-Wan stuff than Boba Fett stuff in each one of their shows, for sure. But I think that that's the thing that they have to do inside of the writing. If they're going to do it, whatever your show is, lean on whoever if you're going to do a Princess Leia show, lean on Princess Leia and make the adventure about Princess Leia. Make the stuff about
or
Princess
don't
Leia.
Call it that at least,
or don't call it Leia. Right. Or and again, I'm very aware that there was a lot of stuff that was going on with Obi-Wan for sure. But I just think that you can have that is the risk. That I think Steph's absolutely right. But in something like Andor, we know what happens to him, but we don't know all the lead up, and we have a whole bunch of new characters. And how much of Mon Mothma are we really going to be so protective of when she's, well, that's not the way she would act at a council meeting. It's like, we don't know yet.
You have no idea.
We don't know yet.
You have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Will Akbar show up? Those types of things. Like that's all stuff that could be really fun, and we learn new Imperials and things of that nature. So I do think, and that's why a show like The Acolyte is set up for success. As long as the tone and it doesn't feel like campy, and they got to get away from that stuff, like the stuff that happened in the woods. If they get away from that chase scene and stuff, if they
never forget,
like that type of stuff. But if they stick to like more feels like that last fight or things that we've seen in the Mandalorian and even a lot of stuff that we saw in Boba Fett, like those types of things that Acolyte is set up for major success because it's like. 1,000 years or something before Phantom Menace or something like that, or 300 years. I can't remember what it is. I think it's 300 years.
500.
Whatever it is, it's not.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's not separate. The only one that you probably will see is Yoda, right? Yoda's the only one that you probably recognize because he'd be alive at that point. He'd be probably like 500 years old if it's 300 or whatever it is. So that's something that is set up. The one that's also interesting is the what's it called, the John Watts series? Shoot.
Oh.
What do we say?
Skeleton Crew?
Yes, Skeleton Crew, which I thought was High Republic, but is now, it's still going to land inside of the Mandalorian time frame. So and Ahsoka is another interesting one because Ahsoka, even though it's characters that this is the big difference for Ahsoka. Ahsoka has the creator of Ahsoka running the show, and the last time you saw her and Sabine together was in the show, also created by the creator, the showrunner of this show. So that one I think is also set up for success. But going forward, I think they need new stories that don't connect to a lot of recognizable peeps.
Yeah, me too.
All right, let's get to a few more here. Let's see. That was from Far Too Bored. Next one is from The Grouch 74. Out of all the projects that have been announced, what are you guys most excited about? What do you wish they would make? What do you wish they would not? And how do you feel they would handle the movies going forward, considering how the last trilogy went? We kind of covered some of that in the last conversation, but let's see. Let's start with this, Steph. Out of all the projects that have been announced, what are you most excited about coming up?
Ahsoka.
Okay.
I think just seeing that teaser clip and knowing where it's leaving off, where it's starting, where it left off from Rebels, I think is just like, to me as a Rebels lover and an Ahsoka stan, I can't not be the most talking about that.
Ahsoka, I mean, Mandalorian doesn't count because we've already been set up.
Yeah,
This is the stuff that's announced, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that's been, we're really talking about Skeleton Crew, Acolyte, and Ahsoka, I think, at this point, right? What is there? I mean, Andor. Does Andor count?
Yeah. Yeah, Andor counts.
Because that's shot, but I guess announced. Either way, I would say for me right now, I'm the most excited about the Acolyte. I think that was I very much so want to see what happens next. I'm a big Rebels fan and want to see where it goes next. But I think for all the examples that I just gave beforehand about, I know nothing about this time period where we're playing with. It's a brand new time period. There's a lot of Jedi running around, and yet the Sith are still in the background somehow. And from the rumors that we're hearing that there's going to be mentions of Bane and Revan and all this stuff, that's like right up my alley. So that is, if done correctly, could be a show that I'm very much excited about. But I don't know enough about it yet. I haven't even seen a trailer about it. I haven't seen any footage. I mean, the stuff that we've seen, I can't believe how excited I am for Andor. Andor was always a show that I was like, oh, we'll see how it plays out. I don't necessarily know if anybody was calling for an Andor show, but this is one of those things where it's like, who cares if anybody was calling for it? It looks damn good.
The trailer looks sick.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for, in the same way that Rogue One has risen up the ranks for me in the films and is, to me, you can say this is easily in the Disney era of making those films since Disney bought them in 2012. It is the best Disney era film, no doubt. I feel anyway. And so to connect that to this television series, as soon as this is over, I think I'm gonna watch the trailer again. I haven't watched the trailer, I think, since Celebration. So.
Yeah, that trailer looks so good to me. Like it just is a part of the galaxy I feel like that I just didn't think that I wanted to see, and I do.
Agreed. So, and finishing that out, so what do you wish they would make? I think I'm going to kind of couple up what I just said before. I really wish that they would just adapt one of their books, whether it is Lords of the Sith, that could be the Vader series, whether it is Lost Stars, whether it's the Darth Bane trilogy, whether it's Darth Plagueis. I think there's so many books that they could do. That's what I would like to see them do. How about you, Steph? Anything that you wish that they would make?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I feel like all the corners are being covered right now.
Yeah, how do you?
I'm with you in the sense that like I would love Darth Bane and Darth Sidious, more of that. Like we always talk about the scene in Revenge of the Sith between Palpatine and Anakin, and that I would love that. I just don't think they're gonna do that right now.
No, they probably won't. And then going back to what you said, what do you wish they would not? There's nothing that was been announced that I don't wish that they would make. So they said, what do you wish? That's the other thing to be very clear about. I at no point, and I said this on Big Thing on Monday. It does drive me crazy when people will tell you both sides of this. Like, in what world do I have to tell you? If you told me that you loved Obi-Wan and you thought it was the best Star Wars that you'd ever seen, in what world do I have the right to tell you that you're either you're not a real fan if you liked Obi-Wan, and you're not a real fan if you like some of the bad writing that I think is bad writing? You're an idiot. What world do I have to say that? The answer is that there is no world. And on the same flip side to that, in what world do you have to tell me if I don't like the writing, if I don't like certain things, that I'm being too negative, that you just accept what you got, just understand that this is what it is, and just enjoy it? It's like, I'm glad that people are able to do that, but on the side that I should be able to say my honest feelings to how I feel about it, and then also turn to you and say, I think it's awesome that you felt that way about certain things, and you shouldn't hate on, but you shouldn't tell people that if you don't hate it, you're a moron, or if you don't love it, you're just too negative and you shouldn't be watching this stuff anyway. It's just meant for kids and you're not liking it anyway. It's like, it's so silly. You should be able to talk about and give your feelings about however you feel about it.
Yeah, you probably saw this one tweet from this guy. I don't even know his name, but he was like, if you're a real Star Wars fan, then you would have only liked the original trilogy and Rogue One, and maybe I forget the other one. It was just like such a stupid
that's
tweet.
a moron.
And I was like, who writes this?
That's a moron. And it's like, it's like that. You can't. You can say. The flip side to that is, I'll be honest, guys, everything I've watched outside of the original trilogy, I don't like. I don't like it. I don't think it works. I think the writing's bad. I don't like the acting. I don't like anything that I've seen. I'm sticking with the original trilogy. Kudos to anybody else who likes it. I'm out. And someone will write back, "Oh, how dare you? Blah 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 blah. You know, you can't. You shouldn't watch it then." Blah. And if that person had written that, they had the right to say that. But to say you're not a real fan,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and I actually saw Pete Serretta had written a great response to that. And he's like, if you like Star Wars and you enjoy it, however you enjoy it, no matter what it is, like I said, I think that end fight with Obi-Wan is incredible. There's a lot of stuff. Like, I was rewatching Obi-Wan again with my daughter, and there's a lot It is easy. Like, I can rewatch the Obi-Wan series many times over, even with the gripes that I have about it. I can watch it many times over, more so than I'll be able to watch, like, say, Last Jedi, right? But that same flip side, Mark Riley and tons of other people swear by Last Jedi and love it, and they shouldn't be called shills, and they shouldn't be horrible people because they like it and not real fans. It's like ultimately, Sebastian Maniscalco jumps into my head. It's just a movie.
Yeah.
Lightsabers are cool, but they're not real. It's okay. Darth Vader's not really gonna get you. It's great to be a massive fan of this stuff. Obviously, we're on a show that is talking about Star Wars every week, but it's like, what is it really worth? Like, screaming and yelling,
going to war with people over.
I mean, it's like, whether you, and to be fair though, Steph, it's on both sides of it, because you see, there's a lot of self-righteous people out there that if you say you don't like something, that they call you names about whether you're negative, or they put you in a place of hate, or the other things too. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist, because it surely does, but a lot of times it's just accept what you got. Just accept what you just love it. Just love it. If that's what you want to do, you want to love it, then you should love it. But, like, don't tell other people what not to say if they're doing it in a respectful manner. Like, I've had a lot of conversations with really respectful people on this channel who've been like, we just got a couple of questions about it, saying I didn't really love where they went with it. They weren't hateful about it. The hateful people you tune out, and if they start screaming and yelling and throwing stupid things out, you block them. You get rid of them. But it's both sides. It really is both sides.
Yeah, and any extremist is so not the Star Wars way. It's so funny when we miss the mark of the entire reason Star Wars exists is like to show you to not do that, and then people do it. It's so wild.
It's crazy. All right, let's do a couple more here. So that one was the Grouch 74. This is Selznick Cinema. If there was going to be another show focused on an already established character, who would you want it to be and why? Well, I think we kind of covered that. I would say Vader. I'd want to see 6 episodes of Vader directed by Scott Derrickson. What about you, Steph?
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask you why Scott Derrickson.
So to me, I just saw the Black Phone, and I think he did some great stuff in that. And I think that if he's able to go a little more horror with Vader, because if you look. Because even though I agree with that, the commenter or the fan who wrote the thing about how they might stray away from making Vader too villainy. I mean, he was pretty villainy in this series, and he looked pretty terrifying in a lot of the stuff that they did. From that first shot in episode 2 at the very end when he's in the tank and the music, Deborah Chow did an amazing job with that scene. And then he was terrifying, some of the most terrifying Vader that we've ever seen in episode 3 when he's cracking necks and he's doing all this stuff. And it's a little questionable that he just decides to stab Reva in the chest and just leaves her and doesn't finish her off, but that seemed a little un-Vader-esque. But he was pretty terrifying throughout the entire series. So it's possible that they could do that. And I think Derrickson brings a really good horror element to it. Now, I don't think you can get as horror based on Disney Plus the same way that you do Stranger Things on Netflix, but I think that you can balance it and get close to it, and I think Derrickson would do a good job, almost like he did, maybe even a little bit more of an intense version of what he did with, say, Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I love the original Doctor Strange. That would be cool. I haven't seen Black Phone, but I've heard really good things about it. In terms of characters we've already seen and want more of, I'm not sure. I'm all about
over it,
expanding it. Yeah, I don't know, because I like what we've gotten, but it's starting for the first time to feel like they're making stuff to make the movies better, and they don't need to do that anymore. Like, I'm worried that a Vader show, then we're gonna get Palpatine, and then it's gonna be about like his cloning stuff to make Rise of Skywalker better.
Well, I think you're getting that in Mandalorian. They already started that in Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's true. It's so small, though. I think if the whole show is focused, that's
right.
One.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. The whole. I think we're gonna get more of that though in Mandalorian as it comes up. But I do think that. Yeah, I mean, that's why I say Lords of the Sith. The Lords of the Sith was, I think, 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, and it's legit. It's Cham Sundala, who is Hera's father, is basically going through this whole battle. That to me is a very different side where you could set up a whole story and set it up gradually where that's happening on one side of it, and the other side is Vader and Palpatine get stuck on this planet together and have to battle their way out. Just the two of them. And inside of that, the psyche of Emperor just in Vader's head the whole time, keeping him going down that dark side, not letting any light thoughts get into his head the whole time. And just like that, like a mini series of that, and fighting their way through, and eventually showing this battle that the two of them are getting through, and you see Palpatine fighting through at one point, and I can't remember who's coming after him, but he fights with the Force lightning and everything too. It's an incredible story, but it's one of those things where they're not gonna do.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I would like that, because that is. To me, the takeaway I got from the ObiWan series is when you see Darth Vader, to me, the number one emotion I feel is sadness. I just feel like it's so sad.
Yeah.
But then there has to be a time with what you just talked about where it turns to just anger and fully stepping into that to blow up planets and things, you know, like that. So if they went like that, developing that psyche a little bit more, that's cool.
I think where they would probably go with it now, if they were going to do a Vader series at all, it would be after Palpatine's like, hey, snap out of it. We don't got to worry about Obi-Wan anymore. Let's start concentrate on the task at hand. And then it would be the two of them doing their thing. You just see Vader going off on it, whether or not it's when he first meets Afra or whatever it might be. Who knows? All right. Let's see. We got around 2 minutes left. Let's end up with a couple more questions. All right, here we go. That one again. Thank you from Celsmic Cinema, and the next one here comes from Jordan Austin. How would you feel about an Obi-Wan Season 2 if it primarily focused on Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and it really goes into depth on Obi-Wan learning to become a Force ghost from him, while also having some side episodes of him secretly helping out locals against bandits, Tuskens, disrupting Hutt spice movements, allowing for a very spiritual second season that really delves into the Force in depth that casual fans haven't seen, while the side stories give us the action fix and also introduce new characters? I mean, I love this idea. I think it's a great idea. The only issue that I would bring up if I was on the other side of it, if I was at Lucasfilm and someone was pitching this idea for a Season 2, it's like, does that deliver now as well as having Vader in that first season? How do we, because you just basically, you just shot it all because Season 1 was meant for a one-off. It was meant for a one-off. So if it was meant for 2 seasons, starting with what this guy just pitched, and then Season 2 is Vader coming in, then that's a massive impact of holy crap, Vader just showed up. That's why I think they stay away from Season 2. I think I just don't think I think there's too much. What do you do? What do you do with Season 2 that's going to be, except because this to me seems like fun, but it seems small compared to what we just got. Yeah,
I think a lot of the Star Wars fans aren't as into what you just said. Oh, I would love that. I think like in terms of getting broader people who maybe aren't even just Star Wars fans, they just watch some of the Star Wars content on Disney Plus. They'd be like, okay, cool. Like it's Ewan McGregor. I'll watch him because he's one of the greatest actors, but it's a cool story.
Yeah. There's just like, it's just so you can't go up from where you just had this big, huge battle with Anakin on this planet. And I don't want to see Anakin back, and I don't want to see.
And he still has to be low key.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He can't be like Vader
all over the place. Yeah. I don't
on
want
Tatooine.
Exactly. I don't want to see. I mean, I want to see Hayden back, and I think that he's rumored to come back for Ahsoka, and I think that's great. Whether it's Force Ghost and then some more flashbacks and bring him back. The other thing that I would love to see, but you'd have to actually de-age him because they didn't. Some people said that they did do a de-aging on Hayden. Didn't look like. There was a funny meme, 40-year-old Padawan. Did you see that? It was the 40-year-old version.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It's really funny. But I would love to see a de-aged version of Anakin and Obi-Wan for like 4 to 6 episodes of during the Clone Wars, and see a live action version of the two of them doing certain things. I know people, we've seen that already. I will push back on somebody who wrote this on a recent episode who said, and I've seen this before, and I think Pablo Hidalgo even said something like this, that why would you want to see a Vader series when the entire saga was a Vader story? It wasn't. A Vader story? It wasn't. The beginning, the first 3 episodes were, episode 1, 2, and 3, was Anakin Skywalker being found and his ascension into becoming Darth Vader. Very true. There's no real protagonist in that trilogy at all. Like he's a main character, and him discovering that, and we finally, but you only see Vader for like 5 minutes. You see him before he's in the machinery and everything too, but then you see him maybe 5 or 10 minutes for the whole entire movie, and then he's at the end with Palpatine. He's got his arms folded, so that's all you see. Now, as far as the original trilogy. First movie, he's not in it as much as you think he is, and he's just kind of like an imposing villain. Second one starts to build a little bit more about the story of Luke and understanding who he is with Luke, and then the end is the redemption of ultimately what he's able to do. So coupled up with everything, but the story of actual Vader and being Vader and you got more of that inside of the Obi-Wan stuff, but actual Vader through that time period of Episode 3 leading into Episode 4, there's a lot on the table. A lot on the table.
Yeah, true. They might do. I don't know if they would. I would love to see flashbacks of the Clone Wars. Maybe we can get that in Ahsoka.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not sure. Anyway, all right. There's a lot of great stuff. And I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. Obviously, thank you to Steph Sabraw. At Steph Sabraw, make sure you check her out, The World Girls. Check out YouTube channel and a whole bunch of other great stuff that's going on. And a great TikTok follow. Make sure you check Steph Sabraw out on the TikToks. And that's all we got for you, ladies and gentlemen. Where is Mikey Chicken? Who knows? He's working again today, so he'll be back eventually, we think. All right, well, thank you to Steph. Thank you to all you guys and for everybody who submitted questions. If we didn't get to your question, apologies. There were some great ones, and we'll have to get it on the next round. We are going to be doing rewatches. That we're probably, we did that already. I was going to say we should do a rewatch of Rogue One, but we already did it. We did it for on this. So we will do a rewatch of Mandalorian once we get closer to that series, but I think that we'll do a bunch of these question stuff, any big news that drops, but that's it, everybody. So once again, if you haven't done it, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button, like, share, comment away, helps out tremendously on the show. And for Steph Sabraw, I'm me, you're you.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger.